If the lights were on, the area felt fine. In the dark, however, it became unsettling, and because there just so happened to be two safety mirrors facing each other in that hallway, the two women suspected it might be a portal. Now it's time for Puppets, Pupils, and Producers, a story of mind over matter. Cassie wanted to believe in God, but couldn't get past the condemnation of her homosexual brother, and didn't understand why there was so much suffering in the world. She wanted to believe in miracles too, but stories like the virgin birth of Jesus were too far-fetched for her scientific mindset. Rich, on the other hand, was indoctrinated into the Catholic cartel at birth, and his devout when convenient rhetoric made her doubt the validity of organized religion even more. But just because she didn't believe or belong didn't mean she wasn't doing her own soul searching. Because she'd had several unexplainable experiences, New Age religions interested her, and she found Wicca in particular appealing. She read several books on the topic and learned that Wiccans didn't worship the patriarchal God of Christianity, and although some recognized Jesus as a prophet, they worshiped divine cosmic forces and believed in a god and goddess which represented the male and female aspects within each of us. The Wiccan religion honored nature and astrology, and many of the celebrations revolved around the seasonal equinoxes. Some Wiccans combined healing substances with healing intentions and were seen as an apothecary or witch. Those who were not healers did not consider themselves a witch. For that reason, all Wiccans are not witches, and all witches are not Wiccan. The religion's teachings were based on the rule of three, meaning every intention, whether good or bad, would return to a person threefold. Like karma, it didn't matter if you had an audience or not, which appealed to Cassie because she was tired of people who weren't authentic and tired of pretending she wasn't one of them. Because just like Rich, who became a good Catholic once he was inside a church, she lived in a black and white world where she was a good wife or a bad one. Either she loved her husband and wanted to work on their marriage, or she despised him and wished they'd divorce. She was sick of the roller coaster and wanted to become a better version of herself, but she still couldn't see that Rich was at the controls, and he was making sure she couldn't get off. All she knew was if the rule of three was at play, everyone was responsible for their own behavior, including her husband. She also wasn't surprised to learn that many Wiccans were in the healing professions. Most, however, didn't share how their wisdom came from studying natural medicines and energetic forces, because many would dismiss it as woo-woo, as voodoo, or something dark or satanic, which it was not. Sure enough, once Cassie started talking to her colleagues about some of the medicinal recipes she was trying, a doctor and several nurses quietly shared that they were Wiccans. Lily was one such nurse and preferred they only speak about their shared beliefs whenever they worked night shifts together. Whether it was their conversations about the ethereal or the unification of their sensitivities, they'd usually experience something paranormal on those nights as well. There were a handful of people who openly admitted they'd seen a ghost in the facility. One supervisor swore she saw a man wearing an assistant's uniform in an area being renovated, which couldn't be accessed without a master key. Another assistant claimed he saw a shadow walk through the bars of a cell, and another said he'd seen a teapot floating up in the air. And lastly, on a tour, A visitor asked about a patient standing in the corner, but nobody else could see him. Both Cassie and Lily agreed that Unit 5, Unit 8, and the classroom in the basement were the most active spots in the facility. They also agreed the energy of each felt different than the other, and the most sinister feeling of the three was a specific area on Unit 5, near the shower room. If the lights were on, the area felt fine. In the dark, however, it became unsettling, and because there just so happened to be two safety mirrors facing each other in that hallway, the two women suspected it might be a portal. Once they started comparing notes, they both admitted to being touched by something on Unit 5 and questioned whether it bothered one patient in particular, because sometimes he'd yell, "Get off of me," or "Leave me alone," in the middle of the night. While it could have been a nightmare or a symptom of his illness, he always said the same things, and the two women wondered if whoever or whatever it was targeted him specifically because he'd raped and killed several children. During the night, the shift supervisor would visit each unit twice. In between their visits, a security chief from the Great Divide would come to check the fire exits leading into the yards. Most of the men stayed for a coffee before leaving down the back stairwell, and either Cassie or Lily would usually remind them to leave the light near the shower room on, and because they respected the two nurses and their sensitivities, all but one passive-aggressive security chief did so. Then one night, as usual, he turned the light out before he left down the back stairwell, and the two women unexpectedly turned to the other and said they wished he'd have a paranormal experience himself. Agreeing they'd go turn the light on together, they started walking towards the shower room, and all of a sudden, the light came back on, and the shocked and shaking security chief never turned it off again.